Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Farzy Show. Marc Farzetta with you here at the Steven Singer Studios. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. So much to get to today. Jack McCaffery from the Delaware County Daily Times will be joining us, more affectionately known as the Delco Times. Will be joining us, Jack McCaffery. Always enjoy Jack's opinions. They are often far different from mine. But anyway, Alec Bohm was out. As much as I enjoy the Phillies win, I don't think he ever touched the plate. Now, somebody did tweet me and say, hey, did Darno ever tag Alec Bohm? And that's a good question. I believe that he did. However, I know that Alec Bohm never touched the plate. And regardless of whether or not he was tagged, if he goes back to the dugout, he's out. So if he leaves the base path, as they say, he's out. If he leaves the circle, he's out. Alec Bohm never touched the plate. And I'll tell you how I feel about it. I don't care. The Phillies won. Phillies didn't get swept by the Braves. The Phillies didn't immediately, after sweeping the Braves, give those 3 games back to the Braves in their 3rd series of the season. So I'm happy. And here's another thing. Matt Moore pitched yesterday, and the Phillies won a game that Matt Moore pitched. So again, I'm fine with all this. I find it bonkers that Dusty Watson, the third base coach of the Phillies, decided to send Alec Bohm on a very shallow hit ball to left field, and Marcell Ozuna actually threw a good ball into home plate, and Darno just couldn't get him out. I've seen some people actually take the stance on this that Darno blocked the plate. That is wrong. He did not block the plate. The throw actually took him away from the plate. He fielded the throw and then lunged to make the tag. That is allowed. He lunged to make the tag on Alec Bohm. That is allowed. That's not why he was safe. So Alec Bohm never touched the plate. Run still scores. Run counts. Phillies win the game 7-6, and again salvage the sweep against the Braves. And it was a big game for the long ball, of course. 3 Phillies with home runs in this game. Rhys Hoskins, Didi Gregorius, and Bryce Harper all hit their 2nd home runs of the season, which is great. But the thing for me, above all else, is the fact that the Phillies offense came up big in this game where they knew they had to come up big when they had more on the mound, and they were able to just salvage the one game. And the last thing I wanted to see was the Phillies give all 3 of those games back. And you're going to win games like this throughout a 162-game season where you're going to get the benefit of a bad call, and you're going to lose games like this throughout a 162-game season. Without further ado, this is put together by NBC Sports Philadelphia, and you hear from everybody in this clip. So credit to NBC Sports Philadelphia for putting this together. But here is everyone you could possibly want to hear from on the tag or no tag or the run that was scored or the run that shouldn't have been scored after replay showed Alec Bohm didn't touch plate. And here is everybody's reaction to Alec Bohm's controversial game-winning run from last night's Phillies-Braves game. Take a look at this.
I was called safe. That's all that matters. I mean, the whole at-bat, he's saying we're tagging on a fly ball, and I'll be in your ear letting you know. And ball went up, I got to the bag, and he's saying yes, yes, yes. So as soon as he caught it, I took off.
And it's clear that his foot didn't touch the plate, that it was on the chalk. Everyone saw it and sees it. You know, everyone knows it. And for MLB not to overturn that, it's embarrassing. You know, why even have replay if you won't overturn that?
It was a narrow one, and it was by the skin of his big toe, I think, that we scored. You know, I think, you know, when we saw it looked like his big toe kind of hit the corner of the plate is what we saw when we saw a lot of the angles.
What did the umpire say to you when?
Nothing. He didn't say anything. I did all the talking. He didn't say anything. We're not giving explanations.
Okay. And when what you saw, did you ever see him touch the plate?
No.
Yeah. Pretty tough to score a run when you don't touch the plate, correct?
Correct. That's why. I mean, we had an angle that I saw he didn't, because I wondered till I saw a certain angle, and I was confirmed what I thought, that he didn't touch the plate.
I was shocked that they didn't use the initial angle more and more that showed it over the top. And over the top, I thought at first, as he was sliding into home plate, that he brushed the plate. And this is what Joe Girardi just said right there, that he brushed the plate with his big toe. Yeah, if you ask me, did he bet on the fact, did he touch the plate or did he not touch the plate? There's no way he touched the plate. I do not see any way. But again, it's a long season. There's going to be a call or two, maybe, where the Phillies are not the benefactor of a bad call. And we're going to think back to this and be like, all right, well, it evens out. And over the course of a season, it certainly evens out. Now, this also brings up, again, why even, as Drew Smiley said, the starting pitcher for the Braves yesterday, why even have instant replay if you're not going to be able to apply it? Well, I think Jason Stark made a great point on Twitter yesterday. And Jason Stark, a Hall of Fame baseball writer, Philadelphia guy, I knew him for a long time here at the Philadelphia Inquirer, read his stuff. But he pointed out that a bunch of officials in a replay room aren't going to overturn an umpire that is standing right there on top of the play in perfect position to make the call. No one's going to go up there and say, oh, well, he blew the call. No one's going to do that. So he called him safe quite emphatically, by the way, and that's the way it goes. That's the way the play stands. So the Phillies get the 7-6 win. Now they go to the New York Metropolitans. They start a series with them, and that'll get underway tonight, as a matter of fact. The Phillies are right back at it. So I don't think Alec Boehm touched the plate. I would bet a hefty amount of money that he never did. But again, in the words of Harry Callis, so what? Phillies win the game, and we move on. But here's the last thing I will say about it before I say something else about it later in the show. Alec Boehm, while watching the replay last night, it was priceless. They get a shot of him in the dugout where he kind of signals with his hands like, oh, yeah, safe, I'm in there, and then kind of notices that he probably didn't touch the plate. Tell me if you pick up on it here. Maybe I didn't. Whatever. All right, Phillies win. Phillies win. So let's move on from that. Coming up, we're going to talk to Jack McCaffery of Delaware County Times about the 76ers mostly. We'll get some Eagles conversation going there. Jack's got some interesting opinions. There was a big firestorm over the weekend with Ben Simmons. And when you lose a game that a lot of people thought you might have won, and that was against the Pelicans, and then you bounce back, which was nice against OKC Saturday night, fine. But when you lose that game and Ben Simmons continues to struggle from the – well, is it even fair to say struggle from the floor when he doesn't really attempt shots from the floor? When watching Ben Simmons play, he does have a lot of games where it is intentionally turning down shot opportunities. And you might say, well, he's the facilitator. You might say, well, of course, he's always looking to set somebody else up. That's fine. But what Joel Embiid said after the game against the Pelicans is exactly what I have been screaming about when it comes to this jump shot. And I know a lot of people, when they talk about that, they'll roll their eyes, or when they hear about that, they'll roll their eyes because of all the other great things Ben Simmons does. And I'm not denying that. But I'm talking specifically about this aspect of basketball. A jump shot for someone who's on the floor, as long as Ben Simmons usually is on the floor, for a guy who's running the offense as often as Ben Simmons is running the offense, he needs to have that arsenal. He needs to have that weapon in his arsenal, a jump shot. Now why? All that's matter is scoring. No, you could not be farther from the truth. If Ben Simmons develops a jump shot, now here's what I've always said. If he develops that shot, defenders have to come out and play him, which opens up space down low for guys like Joel Embiid, for instance, right? So if he just has a 15-foot jumper, guys have to come out on him. They can't sag back and wait in the paint for him, meaning that's a lot more of that space is open for Joel Embiid, for Tobias Harris, for somebody else to drive to the lane. If that defender's coming out on him, also Ben Simmons can throw a little pump fake like he did against the Thunder, by the way, and then go to the lane and try to get 2 points that way, and then maybe go to the line. I would love to see his foul shooting get back to what it was at the 78% that it was, 70% that it was in February. I'd love to see that. But if I'm not going to see that, I want to see another aspect of Ben Simmons' game. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year because I don't think it is. I don't think it's just going to be a snap of the fingers and you see it. I think it's going to be something he has to work on throughout the offseason, gain confidence in it before he really starts using it on the court. But Joel Embiid came out then and said that he has to make the players come out and guard him. So that opens up everything else. It comes down to spacing. It doesn't come down to Ben Simmons scoring on that shot or not. It comes down to him starting to hit that shot with some consistency, defenders having to come out to guard him to open up the space down low or at least away from Ben Simmons so that he can also be a better facilitator. Him making jump shots will make him a better facilitator. It'll make him a better all-around basketball player. That goes without saying. He is still very much worthy of his 3 All-Star appearances. I'm not dogging Ben Simmons. This is a fact of basketball science that he needs to develop a jump shot that will open up the floor for his other teammates and also, by the way, open up things for himself because he can throw that pump fake and drive to the lane and hopefully go to the line, not be afraid of the line, and hit a couple of jump shots. His own teammate is saying it in Joel Embiid, and this is the first time that he's come out and said it. If you remember Joel Embiid coming out in the Jackie McMullen piece before last season, talking about how Ben Simmons can't pass up those shots. And if we're open, we got to shoot. And that's exactly what Joel Embiid said. And I don't know anybody who knows basketball that would say that that is false. And his own teammate is coming out and saying it. It's a matter of will right now with Ben. And I love Ben Simmons' game. I got this is a critique that is a pretty big critique. Everything else, I'm all for when it comes to Ben. I'm not hating on Ben. I'm usually defending Ben, highlighting other things that come out about his game that people want to rip on. This is just such an obvious thing in basketball. And people will dispel, oh, he doesn't need a jump shot. I get the hell out of here. He does everything else. Yeah, it's great. He came into the league being able to do a lot of that stuff. This is one thing he hasn't done since coming into the league. He develops that. He becomes a better basketball player, and his teammates become better basketball players because of the spacing that will be available on the court. You see the space, like you see the difference this year in the spacing on the floor when you do have guys on the floor like Danny Green and Seth Curry. Everybody sees that, right? You see the spacing on the floor with the way Tobias Harris is playing. That's great. Now let's expand it a little bit more and just start hitting a jump shot with some consistency, taking that jump shot with some consistency, making a defender come out and guard you and open up that spacing even more so. Yeah, okay. I'll do that. I can't wait to see what that actually looks like when it actually comes to fruition, and you actually see an offense look complete. And that'll be what it is when Ben Simmons does have that aspect of his game. Love Ben. I'm not training Ben. Nothing like that. I can say, and you can say, that he needs to develop the most basic part of basketball, a jump shot. Coming up, Jack McCaffery will help us break that down a little bit. But before we get to Jack, this Flyers team, man, we spent a lot of time on Friday talking pucks. I spent a lot of time on Friday talking about the Flyers. They did us a favor. They went out and they beat the Bruins. They gave us a lot of hope. That was nice. That was great. Hey, maybe they will do it. One of those things. And then they go up 2-0 on the Sabres after one period yesterday. Hey, look at this. The Sabres are a terrible hockey team. This is great. The Flyers can take advantage, get 2 points again right here, get 4 points, 2 games. All right, let's party. And then the wheels just got blown off the wagon for the Philadelphia Flyers. And trade deadlines today. Chuck Fletcher is gonna hopefully have some kind of fire sale because there's nothing worth salvaging right now. I mean, you want to go forward. I don't want to trade Sean Couturier. I don't want to trade Claude Giroux. But guys like Jake Voracek, guys like James Van Riemsdyk, Shane Gostisbehere just cleared waivers. I don't know who wants to pick him up for a trade to pay for him, but it's a matter of you want to talk about a fire sale, but who wants some of these guys? So I don't really think anybody is getting moved today of note. I don't really think Chuck Fletcher is going to do much today. There could be maybe James Van Riemsdyk is the guy that one team's looking for. They need a big body scoring, forward that can take up space in front of the goalie and all that stuff. And James Van Riemsdyk, up until recently, has had a pretty good year. But man, I don't know who's going to get traded from this Flyers team, and I don't know who's going to be chomping at the bit to try to get their hands on Jake Voracek at this point. It has just been one bad year for the Flyers. And going into this season, as I've said throughout I just had high expectations for what they were coming off with the last year. And you're getting Nolan Patrick back in the lineup and how good Carter Hart looked. And then everything just fell apart with a little trip to Pittsburgh. They had a 3-game series in Pittsburgh. This is baseball hockey we're talking about, not baseball. And it seemed like from that point on, they go to face the Rangers. They get blown out by the Rangers. The Islanders handle them. And the Bruins continue to spank them throughout the year. and they just could never get it right. And when there was little glimmers of hope, they were immediately followed by a blaze, a great conflagration, if you will, to use a high school vocab word, a great conflagration of just horrible, awful, losing battles, turning over the puck, bad defense, awful offense, struggling in the net style of hockey. And there was no cure-all for it as the season went on. We talked about Sam Moran possibly being that jolt. We talked about Travis Konechny getting things going, which he has to his credit finally. We've talked about all these different players trying to turn the tides of the season, and it never happened. And every single time you had that little glimmer of hope, it was quickly put out. And this is a very disappointing Flyer season. It's the most disappointing Flyer season really in quite some time, at least going through the process, at least going through the era of Ron Hextall. I wasn't expecting much because I knew the Flyers were more or less in a rebuild type mode. Right now, I went into the season with great expectations, and the Flyers, man, they put that out. Before we talk to Jack, I do want to get this in here. The 76ers schedule coming up here. And now you could go ahead and talk about the blowing out the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then you could talk about obviously losing to New Orleans. But the Sixers go and face Dallas, then they face Brooklyn, the Clippers, Golden State, who just lost their center. They can face the Phoenix Suns, and then they got a back-to-back both in Milwaukee. Excuse me, not a back-to-back, but they face Milwaukee 2 games in a row in Milwaukee. These are games that are all going to be, by the way, mostly nationally televised, at least available for a national audience. If Ben Simmons is going to have any type of if Joel Embiid's comments are going to sink in with Ben Simmons at all, these might be the games where you start to see a little bit more of Ben's confidence in trying to expand the floor a little bit here and trying to stretch the floor a little bit and trying to spread the offense, as they say. Nationally televised. I'm not saying he's going to be popping threes, nothing like that. And that's another thing. Whenever you talk about Ben Simmons shooting threes, or excuse me, a jump shot, people automatically jump to the fake take of, all of a sudden he's got to shoot threes. No, and no. I'd like that, but I'm not gonna look at a guy who's not gonna shoot a 10-foot jump shot and say he needs to shoot threes. Like there's no basis in reality for that argument. Let's crawl before we walk a little bit here. Walk before we run. And 3-pointers at this point would be sprints for Ben Simmons. But these are all big games where you're going to have to see a little bit of a change here in the style of play in the Sixers offense if they're going to have chances against Brooklyn, if they're going to have chances against the Clippers again, and if they're going to have chances against a team like Phoenix, who is just a high-flying offense. And then you obviously have a team like the Bucks, who have been difficult to get off your back over the last couple of years. So huge games coming up here for the Sixers. These are all measuring stick games, especially Wednesday night's game against Brooklyn, which will be on ESPN. So we'll be looking at all that and more as the season continues. Before we go any further, I got to tell you about my good friend Steven Singer, Steven Singer Jewelers. Had a couple more people reach out to me over the weekend asking about Steven Singer. Well, first off, aside from getting engaged and aside from buying some great jewelry from Steven Singer, Steven's doing something great for Mom on Mother's Day. Steven's also doing something great for the community, and we all know the community. We've been through a lot over the last year or so. But Steven Singer has a brand new rose for Mother's Day, and here's how he's helping the community with it. First off, the rose is a 24-karat gold dip rose. Comes now in sunshine yellow. This new rose is a brilliant shade of yellow that dazzles and sparkles. Steven has always been in the love business. He loves to say he's in the love business. And this past year, we all know how important love is. In addition to brightening your loved one's day with this new rose, Steven wants to put a little sunshine in everyone's day. So he's continuing to use a portion of each rose sold to support local restaurants by catering meals for all incredible nurses, doctors, first responders, and hospital heroes. So go down to IHateStevenSinger.com, send a sunshine gold dip rose to Mom this Mother's Day. It's a win-win-win. You'll give sunshine that lasts a lifetime for a loved one. You'll be supporting local restaurants by thanking our essential workers, and you'll feel good about doing it. Win, win, win. You can't go wrong. They come in a lifetime guarantee, obviously, and they also have free personalized gift card and fast and free shipping. Simply say I love you and honor mom on Mother's Day and go to IHateStevenSinger.com. That's Steven Singer Jewelers. One place, one price, the perfect price. The other corner of 8th and Walnut, or at IHateStevenSinger.com. Let's jump now to the Zatos Investments guest line and catch up with our friend Jack McCaffery to break down all things Sixers, all things Flyers, and all things Eagles. Jack McCaffery joins us right now. Joining us right now on the Zatos Investments guest line, one of my favorite people to talk to that covers Philadelphia sports for the Delaware County Times. Our good friend Jack McCaffery joins us. Jack, how are you, brother?
You're doing great, Mark. How about yourself?
Doing fantastic, my man. I appreciate you coming on with us. We got a lot to get to today, and I was like, you know what? I need a columnist, but not just any columnist. I need Jack McCaffery. Sixers news, Eagles news. There's the Flyers the wheels are falling off. But let's start it off with the Sixers, who had a nice bounce back win against OKC. But after that game, Joel Embiid comes out and says that Ben Simmons needs to be more aggressive. He shot 2 jump shots in the game against OKC, and he was more aggressive, offensively speaking. And he needs to be aggressive because guys need to know they have to guard him. What do you think is going through Ben Simmons' mind right now that this is actually the second time Joel Embiid has talked about him being more of an offensive, aggressive offensively?
Not only that, it's the third or fourth time if you want to include the Jimmy Butler criticisms, which were the same thing about 2 years ago. So this has been really a 2.5 year process of big-time all-star MVP candidate athletes getting on Ben Simmons to be more aggressive, be more involved. Mark, look, it's not going to happen. And Ben Simmons has had a very disappointing year, even at the defensive end, where it seems to be the mandatory for the opposing coach to say, "Well, that's the defensive player of the year." Are you kidding me? He's not the defensive player of the year. He gambles. He's doing some things that he didn't do before. He just doesn't look prepared on the defensive end. He doesn't look motivated on the offensive end, and it's. You have to love Joel Embiid. He tells you what he thinks. He always has. He doesn't hold back, and that's what he thinks, and that's what Jimmy Butler thought. And you have to think that that's what a lot of other people think, but maybe don't say it. But it's becoming a problem. I mean, you go down to the bottom line theory of putting together a championship NBA team is you need 2-3 plus superstars. He has not played anywhere near like that this year.
No, he hasn't played at that superstar level, Ben Simmons.
No superstar this year.
So why?
If ever, right.
Okay, so here's one of the things, and I kind of moved on from the topic of Ben Simmons in terms of this. I believe Ben Simmons is worthy of his 3 All-Star appearances. Why is it that Doc Rivers makes the calls around the league, as you know, and all the coaches were like, no problem, Ben Simmons is in, that you don't even need to discuss that, but yeah, Tobias, we can have a conversation. Why do you think Ben Simmons is held in such a high regard from league coaches? Or do you believe he is held in such high regard?
I have my suspicions of what those conversations may have been like. It may have been, this is what Doc Rivers wanted us to understand. So that it just goes back to Ben Simmons, that this is obviously the rest of the league thinks that you're worthy of this. We weren't privy to those conversations. We only heard Doc's version of it. It would be difficult for me to believe that the basketball people in that league don't see that Tobias Harris is a better player than Ben Simmons, at least this year. The best guess I'll give you, if I'm wrong on that, is that let's face it, head coaches for the most part are kind of tunnel vision on their team at that time in that season, and maybe not have even as much of a critical eye as the Sixers fans or the Sixers press who are watching it possession after possession after possession. Could be some of that involved, but I'm not so sure that Doc didn't want it out there exactly the way it leaked.
Okay, so all right, so it's more of Doc kind of just not just drumming up interest for his player, but also drumming up compliments for his player.
And keeping the peace among his team. He knew darn right well that if Ben Simmons didn't become an all-star, it was going to be an issue. It is. I don't say that it's Ben Simmons' only motivation, But I'll tell you what, it's in the trifecta. It's right up there. That All-Star game, for some reason, is on his mind. It's always has been. He'll tell you how many times he's been an All-Star. It's listen. Steve Mix was an All-Star. It's a nice compliment. It's a nice honor. It's a nice achievement. He makes it kind of a career mission, is from the way I've been able to read it. And Doc Rivers, being the great coach that he is, figured out, you know what? I'm going to make it sound like I'm going to make it at least what if I'm Doc Rivers, I'm saying, listen, I'm going to take what I hear and I might just embellish it a little bit to make Ben Simmons feel good about it.
I believe the line is improving the truth.
All right.
Jack, I remember, I believe this was 2 years ago now. Ben Simmons wasn't shooting jumpers, and we're still very much in that category. And you had asked him the question about improving that jump shot. And I remember he defaulted to, well, I'm an all-star, so what else do I have to do with my game? Now, again, I have put away the idea of him deserving to be an all-star. I think he's deserving to be an all-star. Is Tobias Harris having more of an impactful season? I would agree with that. But here's what really worries me about this Sixers team as it relates to Ben Simmons. As you said, you need about 3 superstars to win you an NBA title in this league the way it's constructed right now. The Sixers right now, I believe, are an aggressive, offensive-minded Ben Simmons away from being a legitimate title contender, not a conference title contender, but a title contender in the NBA. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not. The way Joel Embiid is playing, they're a title contender no matter what happens. But even the other night, you saw that in the I forget, was it the Oklahoma City game or the Memphis game, where it was so obvious that the minute that Ben Simmons made any kind of move to the basket, they pretty much grabbed him in a football tackle. They would, just knock him down, make him go to the line. And that wasn't even the case the first 50 games this year. This is becoming even more and more prevalent in the last 10 to 15 days. That Doc has done a great job of getting Ben Simmons shots in and around the basket. Oh yeah, guess what? Now we're just going to foul him and we'll put him to the line. And then that's the chess game continues. You do this, we do that. We do this, you do that, and that's where it stands right now. If unless Simmons is able to then bring his game out a little bit, it's going to be a problem. So yeah, Tobias Harris has had such a good year. He's really taking what we knew he was and taking that to the next level and playing great. And what can you say about Joel? It's if he's not the best player on the planet right now, we're all missing something. He puts up 40 spot. He throws 40 down on Rudy Gobert, the defensive player of the year, and it was a quiet 40. If there's such a thing as a quiet 40 on the defense player, so he can shoot. He's done everything, and the way he's playing to address the issue that you brought up, they're a championship contender. Oh, now you got to win. You got to get a good call from the refs. You maybe have to get a good draw in the seedings, and you better make foul shots and all of the above. You better be healthy. But boy, if they're not a contender, then you got yourself a scoop. They're going to be involved.
Mm-hmm. Now, so what do you think they're right now before George Hill comes off the bench for this team, which isn't going to be for quite some time, unfortunately? Where do you think the Sixers are at right now in terms of where they fall into place? Is it a conference championship appearance? Do you see them going to an NBA Finals? Where do you think they're at right now?
Final Four at minimum, and then if it comes down to it, it's going to be interesting to see who gets that home court advantage. But if it's Brooklyn, Philadelphia in that best of 7, I'll take my chances with Doc Rivers getting through that. I'll take my chances with Doc Rivers. So Final Four at the minimum, Final 2 possible, and then once you're in it, why not?
Hey, you know what? One thing that you bring up a good point, because we always talk about the matchups on the court, but what about Steve Nash versus Doc Rivers? That's right. I like that. I like where your head's at there, Jack.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, Doc is, and nobody puts together a game plan, or nobody knows better what the other team is going to do on a particular night than Doc Rivers. He'd be a major league plus if you got to that point.
All right, Jack McCaffery. I want to move on here. Some Eagles news came out over the weekend. ESPN, according to a report on ESPN, Jeremy Fowler saying that the Eagles if they get a quarterback like Justin Fields, for instance, that would drop to number 12, they would considering or maybe even take a quarterback like that to give competition to Jalen Hurts and also bring in another option with Jalen Hurts and Joe Flacco. What do you make of the idea of the Eagles thinking about a quarterback at number 12 if one does fall to them?
I absolutely cannot buy that at all. There's no way you draft Jalen Hurts in the second round last year. I think you and I had a conversation at another outlet about that the day after the draft. And it was, at the time I was very high on Jalen Hurts. In fact, you and I may have disagreed, as I recall. And I said, this guy is worthy of a look. And every move that they've made since then, to me, sets up for giving him a fair look, even bringing in a young coach to give a look. And they've said, do it. If he looks like he's not going to be able to do that, then they can make their quarterback situation next year. To really muddy that quarterback room again for a second year in a row and throw that upon a brand new coach, that kind of possible controversy, and then you really, Mark, I'll be stunned if I don't give Jalen Hurts a year to figure this out, and then they can make their decision from there.
So do you believe this is okay? So you just said, so this is more or less, as we're all thinking right now, the audition year for Jalen Hurts.
This is the audition year for Jalen Hurts, or the validation year. Listen, to me, I'll nitpick a little bit. To me, an audition year is for a 6th round pick. When you're a 2nd round pick, they're going to give him an opportunity to validate what they thought, and they'll have 17 games to do it. A clean slate with a new coach. Doesn't have a whole lot of help around him. My guess is that it's going to be a bad football team, but you'll be able to find out. You'll know a lot about Jalen Hurts after this year. It would be outrageous if they were to go ahead and draft another quarterback high again this year. They could do that. They stayed at 6.
Yeah, no, see that I more see happening, and I think that is what does happen in this draft. I think they actually take a defensive player at number 12, Patrick Surtain being one of them. But as you look back later in the draft, I think that's when they start considering another quarterback. Because look, and bottom line is they need another quarterback. So I think they ended up drafting. I think they ended up drafting one later. Where do you see the Eagles draft at the end of the month? Where do you see the Eagles going at number 12?
Exactly where you just said, Surtain, go get a defensive player and go that route. Of course, they did let some accomplished wide receiving talent go. Obviously, they didn't have great years last year, to say the least. But there's some reason to want to try to at least give Hurts and Sirianni a chance to score some points. So it could be whatever the top receiver is available, but I'd more like to see them go for defense.
I would agree with that. What are you hearing about Nick Sirianni? I'm curious to get this opinion from just about everybody, because I've heard some different things about obviously the passion of Nick Sirianni and all that stuff. What have you heard about Nick Sirianni in terms of what he is going to bring to the table here in Philadelphia?
Enthusiasm, optimism matters. Ability to get through to his players. It's a little different situation, as you know, Mark. We don't get into the NovaCare complex anymore. We don't, even if we go and just stand there and absorb and hear and see different interactions between people that we were blessed to be able to do for 20, 30 years. You don't get that anymore. So we hear about what everybody else hears. My impression from seeing him on the opportunities that we've had to talk to him, I'm underwhelmed. I've written that. It's that job should have been Deuce Staley's job. That to bring in an entry level guy like this, it was puzzling to me. And then, as you all know, I don't want to beat it up forever, but he had a very bad first impression in his first press conference. But to answer your question, what the positives that you look for? There's something to be said for a guy that brings that kind of optimism and that kind of youthful enthusiasm to the job. And at some point, we as columnists and such will draw the line and say, okay, from here on, let's just judge this guy by what he can do. And it's going to be judged by wins and losses, and won't necessarily be judged by wins and losses this year, because he doesn't have the horses to get it done this year.
Jack,
and
right, and Jack, I want to close with you on this, because The wheels have come off for the Philadelphia Flyers. The wheels have come off horribly, and they started out the season they validated a lot of us. Like, I thought they'd have a really good year, and then they started out really well, and then they went to Pittsburgh, and they lost their mojo in Pittsburgh, and then they have lost their mojo for the vast majority of the season against the Bruins before recently, and then they allow a team like the Buffalo Sabres to blow their doors off in the third period and basically solidify their chances of missing the playoffs now. I don't know what to make of this Flyers team. I don't know everything that went wrong, but it certainly seems like a lot went wrong.
Certainly, defense, even from the front line of forwards and the defensemen, they don't defend at all, and it's really amazing to me that they don't do that, because we all know that Vigneault's a great coach. He cannot get this team to defend. It makes you think that they don't have the people to do it. It's again, we talked about the Eagles being in a different year. This whole thing is goofy. They keep playing the same teams over and over and over again. You play Buffalo often enough, you're going to get pinched. I'm not making an excuse. It's not an excuse, because the bottom line analysis is defend somebody, stand somebody up at the blue line, give your goalie some protection, stop somebody's shots through. Who in that team is even a great defender? Very few, if any. And it's after a long season, especially playing as often as they do, it's been very, very demoralizing. And then you look at again, you go to how many years pretty much with a lot of the nucleus. I know that what are you going to do with Voracek? His contract is so overwhelming that it's impossible to move. But do we have to see him anymore? He's never going to play back to what you thought he was going to be when they brought him in from Columbus those years ago. He had one All-Star year. If I'm lying, if it's two, I'll tell you. One All-Star. He cannot put the puck in the net. He gets down into the zone and just throws it away. So you have him and Giroux. His contract is such, he's got a no trade clause, so you're never going to get rid of him. I'm not advocating that. He's a franchise legend, but we know how that story is going to end. So all I could say is that obviously, as trade deadline comes up, sellers. Can you get somebody to get JVR off your hands? You do something with Voracek. Do something, because this nucleus is not going to happen. It's not going to happen with this nucleus. I have great confidence that Fletcher and Vigneault have an eye for talent and can find other players, but it's gone much, 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 much too far with this baseline core roster that they've had. They've been trying to win with too long, and they all just seem to be exhausted by the whole thing. This season, I think I'd have to say it's a decent word. This season's been exhausting. It's been tough to watch. It's been tough to play. It's been quite the disaster, especially after that playoff season last year, where he came away with some optimism, but no defense, and really a flattening core of veterans. It's a bad combination.
Wow, exhausting, I think, is the most perfect way you could put that for the Flyers. Jack McCaffery, Delaware County Daily Times. Always great catching up with you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Anytime, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Make sure you're following the great Jack McCaffery on Twitter, folks. Again, Jack McCaffery, Delaware County Daily Times, the Delco Times, as we like to call it. Jack McCaffery, thanks so much, brother.
My pleasure. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for joining us on the Zatos Investments guest line. Perfect. Always good to catch up with Jack McCaffery, Delaware County Daily Times, the Delco Times, as we like to say there on the Zatos Investments guest line. Before we get to all the sponsors today, I do want to mention this. You might have noticed a little thing in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. So I think that's my left, like in this area here. New little logo popping up there, and that's for our good friends at PHL Sports Nation. That's Philadelphia Sports Nation. You can check out Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs and social media. PHLSportsNation.com. Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. We're going to be doing some stuff with them. They're going to be doing some stuff with us. So look forward to that partnership, and appreciate everyone over there at PHL sports site. It is just fantastic to be on board with you guys Just to be having a lot of fun, of course, over there at Philadelphia Sports Nation. So good to be partying with you, to say the absolute least there. I do want to mention our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. We all know